Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Devan Gonzalez here that you guys are going to hear his story and his expertise. We're going to dive into even more around like franchise stuff. We're going to talk about building a business, building an online business, building podcasts. We're going to talk about a lot of tactics toward the end. So stay toward the end there where we're going to really hit and pick Devan's brain a lot about how he's been able to build his empire. Before we dive into it, I want to give you a free gift of all the listeners here. If you're wanting to build an online business and you want to get to 6 and 7 figures to kind of have that financial freedom and you want to learn how to do ads, leverage AI, build a media team and sales teams, make sure to check out this free gift down below. It's a workshop I designed to really help you be able to scale and grow. It's my gift to you. Go check that out down below. Devan, I'm super glad you're here with us and you're tuning in and you're being here. Appreciate that. And I ask everybody this question about high performance. What does that mean to you though? Like, what does that look like? How do you apply that? Because you work with a lot of athletes, you are one yourself. Like, how does that kind of play out in your life?
I mean, high performance to me is always striving for more and more out of what you can do, right? Not settling for the things that you've achieved and thinking that this is the peak of your excellence or your talent or your skill. But high performance is always trying to essentially play the game you versus you, right? I try to beat the yesterday's version of you in any area of life, whether it's your business, whether it's, your job, even whether it's, your relationship. You're always trying to improve at least 1% better every single day. And at the end of the day, in a year, you're going to be 365 times better than you were at the start.
That's so good, man. I've always heard people say those things, but like, I want to dive into this as we go on, but like getting your thoughts around growing in those areas because you have your own podcast and you interview some great people as well. I'm going to be on it, and I'm super pumped about that. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast. Talk to me real quick, just like some rundown about some practical things that you do of adding that 1%. How do you kind of do that?
So there's different ways to do it. And the way I've done it over time, and the reason, honestly, I even started the podcast too, was to be able to interview, great guests and talk about subjects, that really help other people. But I've learned so much from people's stories that I've been able to implement, the things that they've overcome, the lessons they learned through trial and error, and add it to, systems and processes or, to skills that I'm trying to accomplish in my own day. But the other thing that I do is whether it's reading, a chapter, right? Whether it's trying to self-reflect on a conversation that maybe didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, right? I know you're in high ticket sales. All of a sudden, you think you're going to have a lead that closes, and all of a sudden, it doesn't close. That's not a failure. That's a lesson learned. Where were you misled to think that you had it in the bag, and why did you think that? What can you improve next time? So basically my biggest thing is not just taking in new information, but reflecting on just the things that happen in the day, the conversations, the interactions, your emotional state at certain points of the day. Why did something trigger you? And what was that response that maybe wasn't the best emotional intelligence to have at the time?
Mm-hmm. I like that, man. I like that. Well, talk to us a little bit about like what you do now. How do you serve people so our audience gets a really good understanding of what you do some more?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, one of my biggest core values is to have an impact, a positive impact on as many lives as I can while I can, right? That's the reason for, coming on other people's, amazing podcasts like yourself. That's how, for the reason for my podcast, but my serving in the physical, like direct form with the gym and with the franchise is helping people transform their lives essentially from the fitness space, but then from the franchise space, being able to open up that opportunity so that someone can become an entrepreneur that has wanted to become a gym owner, and giving them all the tools and the resources, but then also the support that they need to be successful. And as an indirect impact, I get to affect their members' lives in a positive manner. So I'm not the one maybe training them, but the program and the workouts and all that kind of stuff that are designed from our corporate company is changing their lives. So I get to have that indirect ripple effect on their life.
Love that, man. You're an author. You have your own book. You have your gym, but you're also franchising it to make a big impact. Love that, man. Now, talk to us about like at the very beginning of all this, man. Like, why are you wired the way you are? Like, why are you striving for all of this? Is this, where your parents were entrepreneurs, or did you have some challenging moment or the line in the sand where you went all in and you decided to build this empire? Like, what made this happen and this deciding factor for you?
It's funny, my parents are not entrepreneurs, right? And I am envious of the people I interviewed, and they have entrepreneur parents, and they've learned those skills over time. But at the same time, for me, I did have that line in the sand. I became a personal trainer during college, and at the time, I thought it was this amazing college job. You get to make your own schedule around your class times and all that kind of stuff. But what I ended up finding out was it was kind of my purpose, and it's what filled my cup. Right, seeing people's faces and their emotional, responses to their, bodies changing, and knowing I get to have a little imprint on their life that will last them, a lifetime, was the most rewarding feeling that you could have. So college was about to end, and it was like, okay, my parents are telling me to get a big boy job, right? And I'm like, I kind of have one, like, and so at the same time, I was going the firefighter route, and I was going to do that, but it didn't feel right. So I had to basically bet on myself and continue with the personal training route, which led into me working for corporate companies, then a private company, and then getting into a disagreement with the owner because I kept getting in trouble for not reading the scripts that they wanted me to read, because I wasn't closing any deals that way, and making my own versions of the scripts, and being the highest salesperson, highest paid salesperson, and still getting in trouble. I was like, we are saying the same thing, just in a different way. I don't understand what the problem is. Right. And so it came down to the owner having an ego issue. And it was just like, you know what, if that's the case, like, I'm just going to step away. Left that, started my own personal training company, grew that to 6 figures, and knew that I was a solo entrepreneur essentially at that point. Me and my business partner, who I was actually his personal trainer to help him with the bodybuilding show, we partnered up, and we launched our gym, and then took it to the next level with the franchise. And I think it's always been in that competitive nature for myself. Like, I don't like losing, but two, I like to feel like I'm always pushing for more. So when you hear a personal trainer talk, every personal trainer says that they're going to open a gym, right? So actually opening that gym was that being that part of that 1%. And then it's like, how many gym owners actually scale their gym and launch it to a national franchise? So doing that was like, okay, now you're part of the like 0.1%, right? So that
Mm,
was just one of those things that, alongside the core value, it was that path least traveled.
yeah, man. Talk to us about some of the challenges of opening a gym, the challenges you dealt with during COVID, the things you had to kind of balance, even living in California and LA. Talk to us about some of those hardships you dealt with and overcame some of those.
So we actually opened up on the tail end of COVID. So funny enough, before the lockdown, I actually got married and went on my honeymoon a month to the day before the lockdown happened. And when I got back from the honeymoon, the game plan was to start looking for locations. And then obviously, it was okay, we got to put all that on hold. But in 2020, me and my business partner started running Strive 11, the base version of the model in the park, and we're trying to fine tune some things. And we're like, okay, well, we're outdoors right now, we can't really get in trouble, and now we can kind of test and try stuff before actually locking into a location.
Yeah.
And then June of 2021, we got our location, and then that was a whole different set of obstacles, because now you have overhead, now you have other things you got to pay for and start to equate for. But the real challenge, I think, was going from a solopreneur to an actual business owner, because I think that you become a true business owner when you actually have a staff and when you have a team, right? Because that's when you need to learn how to actually lead. That's when you need to learn about payroll. That's when you need to learn about HR a lot of other things that you don't necessarily need when you're a solopreneur. But that was also the first mindset shift and perspective change that both me and my business partner needed to have, because both of us basically built the business. We knew how to do things. We could do it fast, effective, efficient, and bringing on a team that they don't know everything that right? Because common sense is only common to the person that knows it. And so for that, it was like, even though it might take an extra 5-10 minutes to explain something to the staff member, it's worth that 5 or 10 extra minutes instead of doing it yourself, because that will save you that 5 to 10 minutes every single day, for the rest of the business.
Yeah, man. And those are different roles. Like when you're like a gym owner or just like a freelance individual owner of your business, and there's one thing there, but when you start looking at scale and looking at growth, it takes on like a form of its own, where you have to start learning all these other skills around like hiring and firing and protocols and standard operating procedures and who's doing what, when, where, and and you have to learn those leadership things that AI can't really teach you, that can't do for you, you know, and that if we were going to look at an AI skill, or I'd say a skill that AI can't replicate, it's EQ, emotional intelligence, from how to lead people and understanding how people work. Because, what I've been studying, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is you have 5 different generations in the workforce right now. And all of them, have different temperaments and drives and backgrounds and experiences that are different to motivate people and for them to have a specific work ethic that's a little bit different. And so it's very unique in now starting a business that maybe you're having to manage all these different generational things. How do you go about leading, people this way, and how do you kind of look at that strategy to win?
I mean, one of the things that we actually started to implement with the new hiring process is we actually do the personality test ahead of time. But even then, what I've also learned is that as much as people, say you should do these tests, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because people are going to always put the best answer forward, maybe not the most realistic answer, or
Uh,
it's almost like a test they feel like. So what I've seen is people answer the test like they want you, or they think you want them to answer it, right?
mm,
And so you take that with a grain of salt. And what you need to start to learn is, yes, there is the 5 generations of people in the workforce, but even more so, in each generation there's the underlying, upbringing and mentality behind it. But every person, it doesn't matter the generational generational um category they fit in. There's just like the 5 love languages in a relationship, there's the 5 love languages essentially of an employee, right?
there's a book right there for you, man.
Yeah, so I think there
There's your next one.
I think they did do a spin-off. I didn't read it, but I think there is a
There.
spin-off of 5 love languages. I mean, I've used the 5 love languages in the workforce. I mean, physical touch isn't really one of the ones I would use, right? But
You might get in trouble a little
yeah,
bit.
but at the same time, like, I mean, a high five, right? And knuckles or a pound it, right? Those kind of things, that's still physical touch. But more so in the terms of, like, not everyone is motivated by money, and that was the weirdest thing to me, right? Because you, as a business owner, right, you would think that your employees would be motivated by money. And so you do bonus structures, you do commission structures, and they're grateful for it. But all of a sudden you'll learn certain people just want to be told they're doing a good job, right? And that resonates with them so much more, and especially coming from the owner, right? Even if you have, like, we have managers and assistant managers in place, but when I go and tell them good job, right, it's like, wow, that you see them light up like a little kid, and they're, now their energy, their, everything is so much more radiant on the floor. And so you need to learn what motivates your team, right? And AI can't do that for you.
Yeah. I want to get your take on, as an athlete and then you're training athletes, there's there's something that clicks in the mind of an athlete that just endures pain. And that's not easy to cultivate. It's like the light switch. It's like once you have it, then it's like now you can understand the relentlessness and the pain that it takes. If you're working with someone that doesn't have that lit, that switched on, how do you go about helping someone see that edge and that ability to push further than they thought?
I mean, I'm a big analogy person, all right? So depending on the person, I try to, use analogies that fit them, right? Whether it's, in fitness or in business. But one of the things is, regardless of the analogy, I try to explain to them what the reason why is that they told me in the beginning why they started this fitness journey or why they started this business. What was the reason you started it? What was that deep rooted reason? What would it do for your life if you actually achieved this goal? Right. And then what would it do for your life if you didn't achieve this goal? Now,
Hmm.
understanding both of those sides to the coin of that mindset, now realize that everything is built in the uncomfortable zone. If you're comfortable, your body is also comfortable, right? And this is where, basically homeostasis is where basically the plateau is. To break through that plateau, you are going to have to push a little bit further, right? It is going to be a little bit painful. It is going to be a little bit painful emotionally, mentally, physically, and you have to realize that that's where growth takes place.
Hmm.
And so once you understand that's where growth takes place, you're willing to start pushing outside of it. And you notice that when you start seeing results, from pushing outside, you're more receptive to continue to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I wanted to get your thoughts too on this. You're a husband, you're a father, you got even one on the way, and you have your business, you have your own physique that you're trying to keep up and maintain. How do you balance this all? Like, how do you prioritize what, when, and how? I mean, is there seasons that are imbalanced? Like, talk about your routine that helps you stay at the top peak of your performance.
I would say there was times throughout my entrepreneurial journey that there was imbalance. And I mean, there's always imbalance. I don't like the word balance because people think balance means it has to be 50-50. But when I say imbalance, I mean like that I wasn't working out, and when I don't work out, all of a sudden I start leaning out. And so people were telling me, oh man, like you're shredding up, you look good. And I'm like, in my head, I was like, no, I'm deteriorating. Like it's like this is not where it's at. But it was also, those were phases of the business when we had just opened the gym and we didn't have a team yet. So me and my business partner were bootstrapped it, and we were working, 18-hour days and going nonstop, and it was like our workout was demonstrating for, 18 hours. And so that was one phase. Bringing on a team, gave us that realization that, okay, we need to also make sure that we're working out too, and we can't be out of shape training these people. But then when we launched the franchise, my business partner was running the business, the gym, and I was building the infrastructure of the franchise. My mentor told me that it takes anywhere from a year to 2 years to build the infrastructure and all this stuff. And I was like, there's no way I'm waiting that long. Like, we've already dropped over 6 figures into this and it's not even built yet. Like, we need to put our foot on the gas. So again, came down to 12 to 18-hour days of typing manuals, creating thought processes to create SOPs. And again, that led to me not working out. And I had the realization that I am more stressed out when I don't work out than if I were to take that hour or 30 minutes and go work out. Even though I'm not getting that hour to work on the business, like, my work that I actually do in the business is so much more effective and efficient when I'm in it. And so
Yeah.
my thing I do now is I schedule my workout like I did this call right now, like I do for my podcast. Like any other meeting, I schedule my workout into the calendar, and I treat it just as important as any other appointment, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you only have one body, you only have one life. You can't let that deteriorate on the journey to the goals, the dream, the lifestyle that you want.
I agree with you 100%. Like, when I get snappy or when, I get stressed, it's because if I looked at it, it's like I didn't go run. I didn't go lift weights. And I could just see it building up if there was like a day or two that I didn't get to work out. And it's so true, man. And I think if anybody's listening, and they haven't prioritized their fitness, hopefully this is a wake up call to kind of help fix the other side of the imbalance. If you're having marriage problems or, challenges with your kids, it's probably because you're coming home and you're super snappy and stressed It's because you haven't just released those endorphins yet with just a workout. So prioritize that. It's going to really, really help you. It's really, really good. Devin, you even have a book and a podcast. Talk about some of those things that you're talking about in your book, and then what you do with your podcast as well.
Yeah, so I mean, the book actually, it's funny. I actually had some copies, but I do have a book, Money Muscle Mindset. Um, the reason for the book essentially was I wanted to, again, have an impact and have a something to give back. I mean, I always thought it was cool when people wrote books, and so I wanted to do that, but never knew what I was going to write about. And then it came down to, well, I've opened a gym, right? And what were the books that I read? And there wasn't one book. Like I had to take bits and pieces of different books, and so I was like, well, let me write a book for people that are aspiring to be gym owners, and essentially, give them all the tools and resources that they need. So in throughout the chapters, like I have like my actual hand drawn, like you can see, I'm not a drawer, but hand drawn pictures and everything like that, giving them the resources at the end of each chapter. They're just QR codes, and I didn't treat it. I could have easily treated it as a lead magnet, but if you scan the QR code, essentially you don't have to give me your email or your phone number, nothing. It's you scan the QR code, it goes straight to a landing page for that chapter. Um, Again, you get the free video, no lead magnet attached, and then that video talks about the chapter more in depth, right? So almost like a mini podcast episode per chapter. And then with that, there's also a button at the bottom that gives you additional tools, whether it's charts, whether it's templates, whatever the case may be. Even there's an interview sheet. So if you're interviewing staff, I literally give you the sheet we use at our gym. Again, you don't need to put anything in. It's a free gift. And my thing was just to give back throughout it. And I used stories from us building Strive 11 Fitness throughout the book as reference. So you can learn how we built it and, build your own version of it as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah, go check out Devin's book, and then go listen to his podcast too. That's going to be pretty amazing. Where else, Devin, can they follow you and connect with you further?
I think the biggest one is just Instagram. I mean, I do post on, YouTube and TikTok and all that kind of stuff here and there, but the most active is going to be Instagram, and it's just Devan, Devan .Gonzalez, Gonzalez.
Perfect. I'll put all those links down in the show notes. Go check out Devin and all the things that he's doing. That book is pretty epic with some of the stuff that he's been able to do. It's inspiring. I'm writing my own book right now, about to release it, and I'm going to start doing some of those things too in the chapter. I like that, man. But if you've listened in, go check out that workshop as well down below in the show notes. Go click all the buttons. Those are going to be really good for you to be able to stay in connection with Devin and with me. And we will see you on the next episode.